Well, you wanted my advice, right? Well, here it is. Don't forget, Billy Flynn's #1 client is Billy Flynn.
Meaning what?
Meaning, don't let him hog the spotlight. You're the one they pay to see.
Hey, Cassettes, and welcome back to another episode of Black Case Diaries.
Hey, it's happening again.
Just like we said.
Yeah.
Back again. We're three old friends, learning everything we can about movies and TV, and hopefully teaching you in the process. I'm Marcy.
I'm Robin.
And I'm Adam.
Last week, we started our two-part saga on the making of Chicago, the hit 2002 movie musical. We covered the real-life history behind the film and some of the behind-the-scenes aspects as well. Today, we're continuing our deep dive on Chicago by covering the film's actors, songs, reception, and more.
Yay!
All right.
Yes.
We're going to talk about the rest of it.
Yeah.
If the last episode really left you hanging, if you really felt like it wasn't long enough because it was shorter than normal episodes.
Yeah.
Well, this one's probably going to be longer.
Oops.
Yes.
So.
Because it's got all that jazz.
It does.
Right. And if you are somehow on this one first, stop and go listen to part one first.
Yes.
Make
Yes.
sure you do that.
Part one. One thing that made Chicago stand out was its incredible cast. Rob Marshall was adamant that they find actors that could pull off the intensive singing and dancing required for the film, so that no body doubles would be used while filming. This meant that the actors went through 6 weeks of rehearsal process that felt more like musical boot camp.
Yeah.
None of them were doubled?
None
of them.
Wow.
None of them.
Nope.
They all
I
did.
would
All
not,
did it.
I would
Yep.
not have believed you.
I know.
Really?
If
Yeah.
you said that like while
Yeah.
we were watching, I was like, oh, there's somebody else doing that crazy stunt.
Yeah.
Yep.
Nope.
Renee Zellweger was new to musicals when she was cast as Roxy Hart. She was a naturally gifted singer, but had never had any formal training until rehearsals started for Chicago. She had recently starred as the title character in Bridget Jones's Diary, which earned her a first-time Oscar nomination.
Yeah.
Because of her background in cheerleading and gymnastics, Rob Marshall knew that Zellweger had the athletic prowess to learn the steps. Once he heard her sing, he knew she was perfect for the part. Catherine Zeta-Jones guided Zellweger through the process since she was more experienced in singing and dancing. Zellweger would stand a few paces behind her in rehearsals and try to match Zeta-Jones's steps.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
She
cool.
was like her drill, like a drill sergeant.
Catherine Zeta-Jones started her career in musical theater as a child. She starred in productions of Annie and Bugsy Malone on Broadway and played the lead in 42nd Street when she was only 17. Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
The lead at only...
Yes.
Oof. She had always wanted to be on the stage, and she adored the golden age of Hollywood, when movie musicals were at their most popular. Before playing Velma Kelly in Chicago, Zeta-Jones starred in The Mask of Zorro and America's Sweethearts. But musical theater is really where she feels most at home. Catherine Zeta-Jones loved working with Renee Zellweger, and the two of them had a strong bond off-screen, despite their characters' feud.
Yeah.
It's such an interesting pair.
Yes.
Because of how it's like, I'm trying to think of how to, like, they obviously don't like each other because they're like
Yeah.
enemies.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like, do you hate each other?
Yes. Yeah.
Are you kind of friends right now? Like, I don't, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. They have really good chemistry.
Yeah.
They do.
And they really complement each other really well because, Roxy does not do a lot of dancing in this movie.
Right.
There's some dancing, but not a lot of dancing.
No.
Velma is the dancing role.
Yes.
And what's so interesting, I don't know if it was always that way, but it's that way for this movie.
Right.
Definitely. She's incredible. It's
It's so good. Yep.
it's no wonder she won the Oscar for
I
it.
know.
Right.
Yeah.
She really just fell into this role perfectly.
I was just thinking about how she goes from this, like, don't talk to me kind
Yeah.
of thing, like, I'm getting the attention, to
Yeah.
being like, just so you know, Billy Flynn only thinks of himself. Just so you know.
Yes.
And then, like, yeah, just all the different stages that she goes through throughout the movie, too. I also like her rapport with Mama Morton. I really like that as well. The dynamic between Velma and Mama Morton.
Yeah.
That's fun to watch.
Yeah, like they've been doing it for a long time.
Yeah. They have this maturity about them.
Yeah.
Where it's just kind of like, yeah, we know how this works.
Yep.
Richard Gere, like Catherine Zeta-Jones, had a lot of musical theater experience coming into rehearsals. He had previously starred in a West End production of Grease and was known for his roles in films like Pretty Woman and Runaway Bride. Gere was intrigued by Bill Condon's script for Chicago. He liked the satire of the justice system, and he was a fan of the film's concept. He felt that Roxy's visualization of events as musical numbers added a childlike innocence to a very serious and corrupt story. Gere was perfect as Billy Flynn, but there was one issue. He couldn't tap dance. As Flynn performs his elaborate closing arguments in the courtroom, the audience sees the character perform a mesmerizing routine on Roxy's imaginary Onyx Theater. Choreographer Cynthia Onrubia spent weeks teaching Gere how to tap.
Ladies and gentlemen, a tap dance.
Tell me, Miss Kelly, did you make a deal with Mr. Harrison? Maybe to drop all charges against you in exchange for testifying here today?
Well, sure. I'm not a complete idiot.
Which is like,
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, to learn to tap.
No
wow.
thanks.
in like 6
Damn.
weeks.
Yeah. I mean, he killed it.
Yeah, he did a great job. Apparently, he came into this and they said, okay, we're going to put everyone through musical theater boot camp. And Richard Gere was like, no, you're not. I'm not doing that. I know how to dance. I know how to sing. You don't have to put me through. I don't need that. And they were like, oh, okay, sure. But can you tap dance? And he was like, no, you will have to teach me how to do that.
So instead of the other musical
Right.
dance,
Yes.
he had to learn
Yes.
the tap dance.
Basically, yeah, because essentially, like they said, it was like there were like classes the way it worked,
Okay.
and the classes like switched around.
Gotcha.
So like in the
Okay.
morning, one of them was in singing lessons, one of them was in doing the jazz dancing,
Okay.
and then he was in tap, and they would just kind of switch around.
around. Gotcha.
Film and stage actor Taye Diggs plays the band leader, the character that announces several of the acts in Chicago. So one thing, if you have never seen this movie, one thing is that there is a band leader who often introduces acts.
Yeah.
He doesn't do it all the time because it would get repetitive.
Yeah.
But he does it a lot in the beginning to really illustrate to the audience, like, this is not really happening. This is a show. You know, this is like, this is the part that's not real, you know? When he's like, and now, you know, it's like, well, where'd you come from, you know?
Right.
You could kind of tell, like, oh, this is Roxy's head. This
Yes,
is
yeah.
Roxy's mind introducing it.
Right. And he's in the very beginning of the movie.
That
and,
I noticed that. I was like, he's the piano player,
Yes.
isn't he?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's why it's still a little bit confusing for people who have only seen it once.
The band leader makes an appearance in the real world at the beginning of the film as a piano player in the club where Velma performs. After that, he acts as a through line in the film, stringing together the imaginary performances in Roxy's mind. He reappears at the end as the piano player for Roxy as she auditions, and then in the finale, he announces Roxy and Velma's act. Taye Diggs has played several roles in Broadway productions of Hedwig and the Angry Itch, Wicked, and Rent. Right now, he has a recurring role on the CW show All American.
Oh, cool.
All right.
Queen Latifah really shines as matron Mama Morton, especially during her solo musical number, When You're Good to Mama. I love this song.
That is so, it's so good.
It's one of my favorites in the musical.
I agree.
Like this one and Cell Block Tango, I think, are my favorites.
This one had the feeling to me that if I were at this club seeing this show,
Yeah.
you know, if you were kind of like, you know, you have the seats up front, but they're all tables and there's bars. and
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
kind of people are walking around during the show or whatever. This is the one that it comes on, and no matter where you are, what you're doing, you turn to the stage.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. to
Because
see.
you're like,
Yep.
she's owning this room right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And originally for this scene, she was, I believe, supposed to be just on the stage. But I believe it was Rob Marshall was like, you know what? Let's get you to do some crowd work. You get down in the crowd and stuff. And that was perfect. I think it made it so much better by having her interact with the audience. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. She's like totally in control of
Yeah.
everyone in that room for her
Oh,
song.
yeah.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Although mostly known as a rap and hip hop artist, Queen Latifah had been acting on the screen for several years before Chicago. For example, she starred in the hit show Living Single and made a guest appearance in The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Nice.
Yeah, that's what I knew her from first, was The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Nice.
Nice.
She's acted in and produced many film and TV projects since Chicago and returned to the movie musical genre in 2007 in Hairspray.
Ah, yes. That's
Yeah.
right.
She sure did.
Yeah. Oh, she has such great characters.
Yeah, she does. I really like her a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
John C. Reilly grew up acting in community theater musicals in Chicago, but he had never sung professionally. He sent in 2 audition tapes of his poignant rendition of Amos's signature song, Mr. Cellophane. Rob Marshall told him he didn't have to do it twice, he was so good. Reilly revealed to Marshall that he actually did it 13 times, but only sent in the 2 tapes. Oh my gosh.
Oh,
I did get it exactly
that was
perfect.
really good. Yeah.
When Reilly asked if he should wear a bow tie, he was told his character would be coming from work as a mechanic. John replied that he thought that Amos would be really proud of his work, so he ended up wearing the bow tie.
Yeah.
Oh.
Amos is the heart of the production. His weary and heartbreaking song stands out against the bright and extravagant numbers performed by the more corrupt characters in the film. He grounds the show by illustrating just some of the pain that Roxy has caused.
Yeah.
Oh.
Roxy has presumably caused quite a bit of pain.
Mm-hmm.
I know she was having an affair, and the guy she was sleeping with was, not the greatest, but he did have a family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, in the 1920s,
Yeah.
Yeah.
now somebody doesn't have a way to support their family.
Yeah. It sounded like at least 4 kids. Like,
Mhm.
yikes.
Yeah. So, I mean, she's presumably caused a lot of pain.
Yeah, because I believe once Amos finds out who it was,
Mm-hmm.
he's
Yeah.
like, "Oh, he's can't be a burglar." He
Yeah,
quickly
we know
turns
him.
around
Yeah.
his whole story.
Yeah.
Christine Baranski plays the savvy newsperson Mary Sunshine, whose voice narrates Roxy's trial. She's a key figure in showing the audience how the story was presented to the public, making their adoration for Roxy more understandable and frustrating.
Oh my, yeah.
Honestly, there were a couple of times where I thought she was gonna get through it. You know what I mean? She was gonna see through the
Yeah.
curtain and figure out
And
that they
figure
were
it out.
lying.
Yeah.
But then she doesn't, or even if she does,
Yeah.
doesn't care, and
Yeah.
she just wants to write.
She just
the
wants
good
a good story. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Whatever story will sell.
especially
you know?
during the puppet
Yeah.
music
Oh,
numbers.
You
yes.
both reached for the gun.
Yeah.
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 She asks the right questions
Yes.
to where maybe she's gonna figure out that their story's not true, or when Roxy starts to break off of script, you
Right.
know?
Yeah.
But
Yeah, her job is to be sympathetic
Yeah.
yeah,
and to get
yeah.
readers to be sympathetic, and
Yep.
that's her job,
right.
not actually uncovering the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Baranski is a gifted actor that has made several appearances on Broadway and in film. She memorably played Martha May Huvier in How the Grinch Stole Christmas and starred in The Good Wife and The Good Fight as Diane Lockhart.
Yeah,
Yay.
yeah, she's pretty great. She's actually very funny, as she's been
Yes,
on Broadway
yeah.
before.
It's a good part, and I get what you were saying before, being
Yeah.
the job is to kind of play along with this whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
But damn.
Yeah, there's a reason why she's got a front row seat for everything.
Oh,
There's
right,
a reason
right.
why she's getting to ask the questions at the press conference.
Yeah.
Right,
It's
right.
because
Yeah.
Billy Flynn knows.
Yeah.
They have a symbiotic
he's-
relationship.
He's calling on her because
Yes.
they help each other.
That's right.
yeah.
He's like, I'll give you the good stories.
Yes.
If you tell
if you
them my
make
way.
her look good.
Yeah.
So those were just some of the principal actors in the
Mm-hmm.
movie. Just now we're going to move on and talk a little bit about the music, since this is a musical after all.
Yeah. And I mean, still props to all the other people who are background dancers. Other
Oh my God, yeah.
smaller role singers and
So
things like that.
much,
It's
yeah.
just,
Yes.
it's all incredible, really.
When you think about Cell Block Tango and the other
Yeah,
women
exactly. Mm-hmm.
in that scene, and just, oh God, so good. Incredible.
Yeah, it's really top tier.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, Lucy Liu is in this movie for 30 seconds.
I
too.
know,
Right?
right?
Yeah, Lucy Liu shoots somebody. And
She almost ruins
3
Roxy's
people.
whole
yeah,
thing.
she almost does. She almost does. Danny Elfman considers the late 1920s and early 1930s music to be a specialty of his. He has said that learning to play Duke Ellington solos was one of the ways that he learned to write music. So, producers of Chicago asked the composer, known for scores like Spider-Man and Beetlejuice, to write about 15 minutes of score for their film. His music fit in perfectly between the original show's songs.
Aw.
Yes.
It reminds me, it's the same thing that we talked about back in Animation April, the idea of an in-betweener.
Mm-hmm.
Where
yeah.
the person who would fill in the major movements with extra frames, a person who, without their work, it would be way worse.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But it does sometimes go unnoticed.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
One thing that he got to write for this movie that was really fun for him was he wrote the music that comes out of the record and when Roxy like shoots Fred Casely in the beginning.
Nice.
Yeah, so he was like, I got to write 20s music. Like what would be playing.
What would be playing.
That's pretty
cool.
cool. That must have
That's
been a
cool.
fun project.
As we mentioned before, the songs featured in Chicago were written by John Kander and Fred Ebb. 6 songs from the original score were cut from the film. One of them, Class, performed by Catherine Zeta-Jones and Queen Latifah, was filmed for the movie and later cut. Kander and Ebb actually wrote a new song just for the film adaptation that plays over the credits. It's called I Move On, and it is sung by Renee Zellweger and Catherine Zeta-Jones.
Very interesting.
Nice.
I wonder if there's a cut out there somewhere. Like, you know how they'll put deleted scenes back in to movies when they show it on TV?
Yeah. So that version, that song is on like the DVD. Like you can watch it because it was fully produced.
It was a fully cut scene.
Yeah. So the scene where it was at was, Mama and Velma are listening to the radio, and Velma hears Roxy like steal her bit.
Right, because
on the radio.
They're listening to their trial.
Yes.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, she stole my thing. It's cut right there.
Yep.
They were, because like Mama just reaches over and turns off the radio, and then they just keep talking. But originally they like changed the station or whatever, and they sing this song. So like,
so then at the end of that song, they probably come right back to where the movie is cut. Resumes.
Yeah.
Nice.
So it was seamlessly cut from the movie.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
The only reason they cut it, from my understanding, is because Roxy's not there.
Oh. Okay.
Wait.
I thought it was also because like it didn't quite fit in with.
It doesn't make sense because Roxy's not there.
Oh, because she's in that song. Got it.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
You see, Roxy, if Roxy's not in the scene, the song can't be sung in the movie version.
Yes.
Because it's all happening in Roxy's head. So how could Roxy visualize a scene
that's not even
Got it.
true? Yes.
Yeah,
That's
so
why.
she's not
That's why
witnessing.
it didn't fit.
yeah,
Okay,
that would be too. It would be too confusing to the audience. It'd be like, okay, so this is actually happening. Chicago is known as a dance musical where the steps are just as important as the songs. Associate choreographers Joey Peasy and Cynthia Onrubia, assistant choreographer Denise Fay, choreographic supervisor John DeLuca, and director choreographer Rob Marshall devoted an entire week to developing the dance steps for each number.
Damn. I mean, it shows because it's so good.
Yeah. So it'd be like, okay, this song, how are we doing this one? And they'd spend a week on it, and then they'd move on to the next one. Last week, in last week's episode, we talked about the production designer and how he met with them too when he was designing the stage.
Yeah.
And so this is what he sat in on. He sat in on them like choreographing the
smart.
scene.
Yeah.
So like he knew how the stage needed to be because
how
of the way
big,
they
how
recorded.
wide, how everything. Yeah.
Will
Makes
it need a
sense.
bunch of mirrors?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Things like that.
Exactly.
Yes, it would.
Like for the one song.
Yes, for the one song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, now we're going to go through all the songs.
Yeah.
We're going to start out with the overture / All That Jazz, sung by Catherine Zeta-Jones and briefly Renee Zellweger. All That Jazz introduces the two main characters, Roxy Hart and Velma Kelly. Unlike many of the following numbers in the musical, this is performed in the, quote, real world on a stage in front of a crowd of people. This is Velma Kelly's last performance before she is arrested for killing her husband and her sister. It's in this sequence that we flash to Roxy's imagination, where she is performing the same song on stage. As Velma continues to perform, Roxy goes home with her lover. Although the characters are in different places, their movements mirror each other to show the connection between them.
Yeah.
It's brilliantly edited, to be honest.
So good. And this song, it's kind of like the signature song of the show, right?
Yeah.
Like it's, even though it's like, oh, the most famous ones like Cell Block Tango or whatever, it's like this, all that jazz really is like the Chicago song. Like that's, you know.
Like you always say it, all that jazz.
Right, it's kind of wrapped up.
Yeah.
All of it is wrapped up in one song if you had to pick one.
Yep.
When she gets there, she's like in a hurry.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody off screen is like, where's so-and-so? I've forgotten her.
Yeah,
if
her
they even
sister's
say her
name,
sister's
yeah.
name.
Yeah.
Where's so-and-so? It's like, forget it, I can do it by myself. And
Yeah,
they,
she's
they
not
just,
feeling herself tonight.
Yeah.
They just let her.
Yep. They just let her
Yeah.
do it.
But
Like, she can do it.
nobody told the announcer
Yeah.
guy
Yeah.
I
to
mean,
just say one.
yeah. At that point, it's too late. They're like, well, we got to have somebody go on. So,
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Onyx Club is proud to present Chicago's hottest dancing duo. Two jazz babes moving as one. The Kelly Sisters.
It's a full-on routine. There's no, and here's the thing, is that like for the rest of the movie, all of the routines are happening in Roxy's head, right?
Yeah.
And so they're always cutting to show us the real world component of the song, right? And the context of it in the real world. Because this song is real, we're seeing the whole performance.
Yeah.
And the only cuts are when we're cutting to Roxy, which is also real, also happening.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so it's a full performance. It's incredibly mesmerizing. I love it. It's really good.
All right, the next song is Funny Honey. After Roxy murders her lover Fred, her husband Amos attempts to take the fall for the crime. As Amos claims that Fred was a burglar that he shot in defense of his wife, Roxy sings a song about her loyal husband who would go any length to protect her. But as Amos discovers that the man Roxy killed was not a burglar, but a man that she was sleeping with, he stops defending her. Rob Marshall said that this musical number was inspired by Showboat, a 1927 musical that was adapted into film in the 1930s and 1950s.
It's an adoring
Mm-hmm.
song, but still demeaning the entire
Yes.
time,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, he's
Yeah.
stupid, but he loves me, you know?
Yeah.
And then, of course, as like the song goes on and as he discovers who Fred Casely was, who the Fred Casely, the man that she shot, was actually someone that they knew. And he's like, wait, he couldn't have been a burglar. Why would he have burgled us? You know? And then,
he sold us furniture.
Yeah. And then it kind of, takes a nosedive.
Yeah, it changes.
Yes.
Because
Yeah.
it's like, she's like, one of those classic things where they lay on the piano.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's just kind of nice, a little
Yeah.
bit sultry,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. And then after that gets up and it kind of speeds up slightly. And it's
Yeah.
like, well, he's not defending me
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah.
That
Who
sucks.
needs him?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yes. We talked about how no one had body doubles.
Yeah.
And in the scene right before this, so Fred Casely, he reveals that he was just lying to Roxy. He told her that he could make her a star, but he really couldn't actually do that. He
he's
didn't have
got-
connections. He just wanted to sleep with her.
Yeah.
And he tells her that, and she gets really upset, and he like pushes her against the wall. And she hits the wall kind of hard and falls to the floor, and she's like crying. And that was the only part where they thought about having a double, like they were gonna do it.
Yeah.
And Renee Zellweger was like, "No, I think I need to do it. Like I think it needs to be part of because I think she really wanted to feel what you need to feel in order to reach into your bureau and actively shoot somebody."
Needed that emotion.
Yeah.
Yes.
I can see their thought process though, because a trained stunt person would
Right.
fall in a way that prevents injury.
Yeah.
And it is quite a push
Yeah,
It is,
really
yeah.
is.
into that corner.
Yeah.
So, obviously, it doesn't seem like much in the grand scheme of like stunts can be a lot crazier than
Yeah.
that. But obviously you want to avoid injury at all costs.
Yeah,
So it's
especially
like,
to your main actors.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah, because it's
gosh,
like, well,
yes.
she needs to be able to dance for the
she
rest
had
of the
like
movie.
hit her head or something, you know?
Yeah.
We don't want to cover a bunch of bruises on her back.
Yeah.
So, But I also understand why she wanted to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
When You're Good to Mama is the next song.
Oh, yes.
As Roxy is introduced to her cell on Murderous Row, she meets Mama, the prison matron that will help her get whatever she needs for a price.
You must be hard. Ain't you the pretty one?
Thank you, man.
Oh, no, call me Mama. I'm here to take care of you. Now, you'll be habitating down in the East Block. Murderous Row, we call it.
Is that nicer?
Queen Latifah had never performed in a movie musical before appearing as Matron Mama Morton. Her signature performance, When You're Good to Mama, was inspired by the work of real-life performer Sophie Tucker. Tucker was known as the, quote, last of the red hot mamas. She often sang comical and seductive songs, much like Queen Latifah's musical number, which is riddled with double entendres.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It is
So many.
chock full of them.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's actually she's winning over everybody, man.
Everybody.
She is the red hot mama right now.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
It's a very burlesque-esque type of
Yes, it
performance. It's sexy, but it's not revealing. Watching this for the first time, watching this dance number for the first time was a core memory for me, for my life.
Nice.
This was a huge moment for me.
Yeah,
I remember
man.
seeing this, when my sister showed it to me, and I was kind of like, this is pretty good, whatever. And then this song came on, and I was like, oh my God.
Whoa. I mean, her
Wow.
voice is incredible.
Yeah. She's so good. And it was just, it was such the part where she pulled the handkerchief out of, so like in the real world, they hand her money, she puts it in her chest, and then she pulls a green handkerchief out of her cleavage. And I remember the first time I watched that, and I was like, "There's no way, man! I would
How
be
would that
giggling.
not
I'd be
tickle
giggling the
or-
whole time, like,
Oh man.
You're like,
There's
give
no-
her an Oscar just for that.
For
How do you do
withstanding.
that? But yeah, I remember seeing that for the first time because, and I want to say how important it really was because, like, in the early 2000s, like 2002, this time when this movie came out, the discourse about women's bodies was really rough.
It was,
It was like, do you remember? Like, it was
quite a
Ultra
bit.
Skinny was
Yes,
in.
yes.
And there was so much about that. And like,
I mean,
the Photoshop on magazines to make everyone as thin as possible.
Right,
And
Yep.
right.
and so seeing Queen Latifah do this, it really was pretty cool. It was
Yeah.
really amazing because like she looks so good.
Yes.
She looks amazing.
She
Like, she
does.
really does.
Yep.
And it's like there's just no question of like how beautiful she is.
Yeah.
And she was absolutely outside of the standard at the time.
At the time, yeah.
Which was impossible.
Yeah.
Right.
But,
Yep.
I mean,
Literally impossible.
yeah, So
Yeah.
yeah, this was always one of my favorites. I love this one. If I was ever in this play, this is who I'd want to be.
That's so.
I would want to be this character.
Yeah.
Next is Cell Block Tango.
Yeah.
Ooh, yes.
Pop, six, squish. Cicero. Lipschitz.
Arguably the most famous musical number in the movie musical, Cell Block Tango allows several women on Murderous Row to tell the story of how they ended up in prison. This is the most modern dance sequence in the film, and Rob Marshall distinguished it from the original Broadway performance by adding male dance partners to each tango.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Really?
I like that he did that.
I like
yeah.
it too.
Very
Yeah.
interesting. I did
Yeah.
not. I
It
wouldn't
takes two
imagine.
to tango.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't
Yeah.
imagine
I like
anything
that.
else.
And like illustrating this dance is so cool because it really illustrates the murder
Yeah,
each
they
time.
kind of play it out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, with the scarf. Oh, it's so
Yes.
beautiful.
One of them, he's got the scarf in his mouth.
Yep.
And she like kisses him and she pulls
Pulls
the
it
scarf out with her teeth.
Yes.
And like, I mean, it was really cool. It's a really,
Yes.
really visually stunning scene because they're wearing all black. The
Yep.
scarf is red.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah,
beautiful.
there's not much light going
Yep.
on.
Yeah.
Very, very specific lighting.
Yes.
It's
Yep.
great.
Yep. So then the white scarf just stands out so much
Yeah.
more
Yeah.
too.
Colleen Atwood used a 1935 Man Ray photograph as inspiration for the bondage-style costumes worn by the murderers.
Yeah, it's this photograph where they're wearing very similar outfits to what the murderesses, I guess, wear in the movie. The only big difference is that in that photo, her breasts are bare. Like the breasts are not covered by the bondage.
Well, obviously,
Okay.
you want to change that.
The bondage covers other things,
Gotcha.
but the breasts are exposed.
So for a movie, of course, you'd want a little more.
Yeah.
At one point in the song, when the curtains open and we see a chorus of women joining in, there are several dancers on high platforms. They had no harnesses or wires, a safety issue that would hopefully be corrected if the movie had been filmed now instead of over 20 years ago.
I can't even believe that.
That's crazy.
They're just up there, man, just doing their thing.
Doing it.
Thank goodness nothing happened.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah, thank God.
Could have been bad.
Dude, and when like the curtain opens and they're all up there and the silhouettes.
Oh, yes.
I mean,
it's beautiful.
Oh, it's so cool.
It's a great reveal because it's like, sure, there's these specific ones who have each gotten their part, but then it's like, turns out there's a million of these stories.
Yep.
There's so many, there's
This
a lot
is
more
not-
women in this
yep.
prison or whatever.
Yes. Oh, and the song is just so catchy, and it's also just, I mean, it's pretty clever.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
I just was like, he took a flower in its prime, and then he used it, and he abused it. It was a murder, but not a crime. I mean, God, it's so good. It's such a good song.
I know. I would just keep thinking about like the almost fake outs. Like I fired 2 warning shots into his head.
He ran into my knife.
He ran into my knife 10 times.
And we
Oh,
also
man.
really get Velma's story in this for the first time. We actually hear
Her
what
side.
happened.
Yeah.
You know, in her story. And she has 2 handkerchiefs because she killed 2 people.
Yes. Which is so cool.
Yes. Yeah. And she's got kind of like 2 dance partners too.
Yeah.
But really in her dance, she is really the star. Just by herself. And
Right.
Yep.
You know.
Yeah, because they're kind of tangoing together
Yeah.
with her kind of a third wheel.
Yes.
you know,
Yes. Yep.
And then takes
And then it's
both
just
out.
her and she's just, man.
So good.
No doubt that it is, arguably the most famous.
Yeah, I mean,
for
seriously.
a reason you
Yeah.
can see.
It's just so visually striking and the song is really fun.
Yes. Next one is All I Care About.
Oh boy.
Oh, this one's there's just so many good ones. Sung by Richard Gere as Billy Flynn, this is the song that introduces his character as the shady attorney that will represent Roxy in her trial. This musical number imitates a burlesque show, a stage caricature that usually includes dancing, singing, and other various talents.
Yes, this is true burlesque here because the dancers are wearing almost nothing. Very, very little
Minimal.
clothing.
Yeah.
While still not showing any nudity.
Nope. Yep.
But very little clothing. And I know Colleen Atwood, the costume designer, said that they kept having her make it less and less and less fabric. For and the girls at one point were just like, you have got to be kidding me. Like, I cannot, like, you have got to be kidding me.
I need something.
And so she added the fringe
to
the costumes to give them a little more of a coverage.
Yeah.
And she was like, so whatever each dancer needed specifically, like if they needed more fringe in certain areas and stuff, that's where we would
she did it.
put the
That's
fringe.
nice.
Yeah, because you have to remember, this is a movie, guys.
Yeah.
We're not
No,
doing
this isn't
it.
real burlesque, okay?
Yeah. Director Rob Marshall asked Colleen Atwood to design scantily clad costumes for the female dancers, invoking the freedom and sexuality of the 1920s. Atwood added fringe, as Robin said, to the clothing to give the women a little more cover, and she chose to put them in pinks and reds because the song is about love.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
The next song is We Both Reached for the Gun. This is also a super fun one to sing.
Yes.
This one is so fun to sing.
So fun. So clever, too, as well.
Billy Flynn helps Roxy by claiming that she shot Fred in self-defense. He leads the courtroom and the press with the refrain that Roxy and Fred both reached for the gun. This idea is almost directly lifted from the real-life trial of Beulah Annan, the woman who inspired Roxy Hart's character. She said, we both reached for the gun, and, it went off, and he died.
Not suspicious at all.
Mm-hmm. This musical number highlights Christine Baranski's character, Mary Sunshine. Sunshine was played by a drag queen in the original musical, but Rob Marshall and Bill Condon felt that a drag queen wouldn't fit in the real version of the 1920s Chicago. So the character got an overhaul. Baranski, Marshall, and Condon worked together to create a savvy news person who is as complicit as everyone else. She chooses to spin the news a certain way because she knows that it will sell papers.
Yes.
Yep, just like we mentioned before.
As you know, my paper is dry. Do you have any advice for young girls seeking to avoid a life of jazz and drink?
Absolutely, yes. Mrs. Hart feels that it was the tragic combination of liquor and jazz which led to her downfall. Next.
It's not as obvious as the other characters because she doesn't really get her own
Right.
like motive or song or anything like that.
Yeah, that's partly why throughout I'm still kind of like, oh man, she can get him here. And then she doesn't.
Nope.
Yes.
Yeah.
In this grand musical number, there was a large chorus of people being controlled by puppet strings. All of the performers were attached to harnesses that lifted and moved them throughout the number. The choreography incorporates the Charleston, a popular dance of the 1920s.
Very nice.
Yes.
This song is so much fun, and I love the makeup. The makeup of everybody, because everybody has been made up to look like a doll, a puppet.
Yep.
Not real. Especially Roxy, who has been, and everyone else is a marionette, but Roxy is a ventriloquist dummy.
Yes.
So it's very,
So
very
you got
clear.
the lines on the face and everything. Yeah.
Yes. And, the song is called We Both Reached for the Gun, but the band leader says, Mr. Billy Flynn in the press conference rag is what he calls it.
Right.
And notice how his mouth never moves. Almost. And then Christine Baranski says, are you sorry? And she goes, are you kidding? They cut to the real life. Are you kidding?
Yeah, those moments where she goes off the script.
Yeah.
Yes.
You're gonna blow it, Roxy.
Like stay away from jazz and liquor.
Yes.
And that really harkens back to the original quotes from the original people. Yeah, guns and gin, you mix them together, you're in a Dickens of a mess or whatever.
Yep.
And these are the kinds of things
that they said. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the same old song and dance.
That's
that
right.
Billy Flynn has
Exactly.
done time and time
They
again.
all play their parts.
Yep. Next we have Roxy. As Roxy gains favor with the press and the public, she becomes somewhat of a celebrity, something that she has always wanted. She dreams of what she will do when she's free, as it almost feels like a guarantee that she won't be hanged for her crime.
Yeah. She starts to get pretty comfortable.
That's what I'm thinking. She's like kind of cocky, and it's like, this is a done deal.
Not only am I not going to hang for this,
Yeah.
I'm going to benefit from it.
Exactly.
This is going to make my life so much better. I'm already famous.
Which is kind of why I like, we talk about how everyone in this movie is awful.
Yeah.
And they're getting away with awful things.
Yep.
But then at the end, you see that kind of, Roxy's kind of at the top
Yeah.
here when she's not even out of prison yet.
Yeah.
And then by the end, when she's actually out, the city's moved on, baby.
She's yesterday's news.
You know what I mean? And it's just like, sure, you're out of prison, but you didn't really get what you were after.
Yeah.
Not the same level, I guess. So it's kind of this interesting, like, she didn't, get her comeuppance,
Yeah.
but she didn't win.
She gets to experience what happened to the last person when
Right.
she took the spotlight.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
She got to experience what happened to Velma, basically.
Exactly.
Yep.
The crew only had one day to film Roxy. Roxy's bombastic solo number about her newfound fame. While she engages with an unseen audience and dances on stage, a black sequined curtain opens to reveal several mirrors, a visual that illustrates her narcissism.
The first time she runs into a mirror is so cool because you don't know it's there, right?
Yeah.
And she just kind of trans, and then there's
And
two of her.
Yep.
And
Yep.
then by the end there's so many mirrors,
Yep.
and it's a beautiful shot.
Oh, it is. Yeah.
The camera operator had to learn special choreography so as to avoid appearing in any of the dozen mirrors on stage.
Yeah.
It's impressive. It's like how?
It is,
How did
yeah.
you avoid
Incredibly
it?
well
How
done.
did they do it?
Oh,
I mean, people
man.
on the internet selling mirrors can't even do that.
I
so.
know.
Right. It's so well done. And I believe this is the same song where it has the big
the big
neon name, right?
Yes.
I love that, man.
Yeah, she's like sitting on top of it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh.
Yep. Okay, the next song was I Can't Do It Alone. As Roxy's fame increases, Velma is seemingly left in the dust. The performer, who started out as a confident and brassy woman, now turns to Roxy for help in an act of desperation.
It's always funny.
Yep.
Over his voice, over the
Tape
PA.
digs. Yeah,
or whatever. Yeah, Miss Velma Kelly in an act of desperation.
I
So good.
love seeing it's this 3-part kind of scenario where where Velma starts out as like the one who's kind of famous for what is happening.
Yeah.
And then Roxy kind of usurps her.
Yep.
And then just the next person just usurps Roxy in the exact same way.
Yeah.
And it's just hilarious to see it happen.
Yep.
Because if Roxy were still in prison at the time of this third person, she would have been in Velma's shoes having to do this act of desperation.
Yep. I Can't Do It Alone is Catherine Zeta-Jones's chance to really shine. Because she was a seasoned performer, the choreographers gave her a lot of different dance moves to learn. In this number, she essentially does the dancing for 2 people, claiming that she can't do it alone, when she is in fact doing it alone.
Yeah. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So much dancing.
It is. Yes.
It's unbelievable. And they didn't use doubles for anything.
Nope.
And they really had them sing while they were doing it.
Yep.
So you imagine actually singing while doing all of those dance moves, being horribly out of breath.
Man.
I cannot imagine it at all.
Yeah.
I really can't.
Yeah.
She must be in, perfect shape. I mean, it's so cool, like what she does. It really is. It's mind blowing.
It is.
The next song we're going to talk about is Mr. Cellophane. Yeah. Assuming that all of the fantastical music numbers take place in Roxy's mind, it's hard to imagine that she would envision her husband Amos singing the tender and heartbreaking Mr. Cellophane.
Yeah.
One of those little maybe plot holes in the movie.
Yeah.
So I don't really see how Roxy would
Yeah.
She's shown absolutely zero remorse this entire time. I doubt she would imagine this song.
Yeah. Yep.
But it doesn't matter.
I mean, we love it, so we're glad it was kept in.
Nevertheless, the character dons the makeup and clothing affiliated with the stage trope of the tramp and sings about being overlooked and forgotten. John C. Reilly as Amos performs a handful of visual gags that were often performed by comedic characters on the vaudeville stage. One of them is the famous one where their shoes were nailed down to the stage and they would lean in one direction or the
yes.
other.
Yeah.
The Tin Man does it and
Michael Jackson stole that one too.
Yeah. It was a very big.
Yeah.
At this point in the story, Roxy has been using her husband's money to pay for her legal fees. She has faked a pregnancy and ignored Amos's pleas to speak with her about their supposed unborn child. It's kind of heartbreaking.
Poor
isn't it?
Amos.
Yeah, he was like ready to
Forgive her.
forgive it all for the sake of the baby, you know?
Yep.
And it's like, damn, man.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because, like, he still seemed to love her,
He just
too.
wanted her to
Like,
come home.
he
Yeah.
was like, yeah.
Ready for it to
come
be
back.
all over.
The musical number has minimal dancing and no sets. Amos stands alone on an empty stage with only a spotlight illuminating his performance. This visual drastically contrasts with the next musical number, which is one of the most lavish in the musical.
If someone in the movie show yelled, "Fire in the second row! This whole place is a powder keg!" you'd notice them.
I mean, one of the things that I think is so cool about this staging is how it contrasts not with just the next song, which is the most elaborate, lavish song in the whole show, but how it contrasts with Roxy.
That's what I was just thinking, too. Yeah.
Because, he's singing a song alone.
Yep.
Versus her singing a song alone. Both of them have minimal sets. Both of them are very simple. And we have this shot from the back where
Mm-hmm.
you see his silhouette against the spotlight.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you know, in all of her dances, we see her the entire time.
Yeah, she's in the spotlight.
Yeah. And in this one, really, you're seeing the spotlight from his perspective instead. So
Yeah.
you're seeing how the light is affecting him. And this is, I think, is such an important shot, and it's so striking.
And I also think it's a really neat fact that he's also wearing this like tramp makeup.
Yeah.
So I think they even show a visual of him putting it on.
Yeah, he's putting it
too.
on, yeah.
Yeah, versus Roxy, who doesn't have any kind of makeup. Like, I mean, obviously she's made up, but she's not putting on that face or
Right.
anything. She's just already like,
She believes herself.
I'm
to
in the
be
spotlight.
That.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, and he's the only person that doesn't look as good as his real world self, right?
Yes.
Because he's the tramp. The idea is that you make yourself look worse.
Yeah.
You're an exaggerated version
Yep.
of a character. And, you know, so he puts like the spots on his cheeks,
Yep.
you know, the rosy cheeks, and then he does, I mean, it's very minimal makeup too,
Yeah.
which makes it very classic.
Yep.
It's
Yep.
not, you
Like-
wouldn't say clown makeup.
No.
But so, yeah.
Like distinctly, I remember the triangles under the
Yeah.
eyes.
And this song, a lot of people who made the musical, this is like their favorite song in the show. It's the song that
Yeah.
really underscores just how much pain Roxy has, you know,
Yeah.
and it shows literally just the other side of fame,
Yep.
you know, the suffering side.
Mm-hmm.
And I love John C. Reilly. I think he was so
yes.
perfect for this part.
Surprisingly, yeah. It's he didn't.
Yeah.
When I first saw him, I was just like, he's not who I think of, or rather, this isn't the kind of movie I would put him in.
Yeah.
Usually, but he absolutely did a fantastic job.
He really, they said he was such a real actor. They said
Yeah,
everything from
yeah.
him just feels so authentic.
Yeah.
You
And
know?
he also had that musical theater background.
Yeah.
So that was talked about a bit, and so it's like, yeah, this was perfect. He knew how to translate it.
Yeah, exactly.
Next is Razzle Dazzle. As Billy Flynn commands the attention of the courtroom during Roxy's trial, the room transforms into an extravagant circus. Wearing a sparkling striped suit, Flynn sings, "Give them the old flim flam flummox, fool and fracture 'em. How can they hear the truth above the roar?"
Yeah.
Razzle Dazzle 'em was reportedly Rob Marshall's mantra while making Chicago. The song embodies the idea that everything is show business, including institutions like the justice system.
Yeah. Like Billy
yes.
Flynn says, it's all a circus.
Yep.
That's what he tells her
yeah.
at the beginning of this musical number.
Mm-hmm.
And this, whoa, what a circus indeed.
Oh yes.
It's an amazing bit, and it's this. I was totally fooled by some of their case, you know.
Yeah.
Because before this, I think they showed Velma getting
The diary.
the diary.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then they bring that out. The prosecution brings that out, and Velma is a witness and all this.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh man, they've got Roxy now. That you know.
Yeah.
But turns out, like Flynn had this planned from the start. Like it was
Yes.
all a ploy from the
Yep.
beginning.
Yeah.
So-
yeah.
He kind of put on this act as if you can't use that diary. This is
Mhm.
I object or whatever. I can't remember exactly what he
Yeah,
said.
he implies because of the way it's Roxy's real diary.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But what he did was he rewrote passages to
Right.
make it seem like it was an obvious fake.
Yeah.
And then
yeah.
having the prosecution deliver it as evidence, it made it seem like the prosecution had deliberately submitted
Tampered
false,
with it, yeah.
False. Yeah.
tampered with the evidence, and so he
Yep.
kind of
Mhm.
implies that to the judge. And Velma she had made a deal. She's off now. Like, she got out
Right.
Yep.
because she made a deal with the prosecution to give them this diary, and then
Yep.
now she doesn't even have to have a trial anymore.
Right.
And so in a 1-2 punch, Billy Flynn gets both of them out at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, like we said before, the whole room
Yes.
was just a circular courtroom, just like a circus.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And then they added
The circus tent around the edge.
right,
One. Yeah.
And each time he talked to somebody in real life, you would instead of being on the Onyx Theater stage like many of the other songs, we are still in the same location in Roxy's mind.
Right.
But you're seeing like the judge being like petted by a dancer. Those kinds of things. Yeah.
All right. The last one we're going to talk about is Nowadays, or Hot Honey Rag. The final number of the musical, Nowadays, begins while Roxy is still standing in the courtroom, just moments after the jury found her innocent. The crowd dissipates after a new murder catches their attention, and she heads out, unsure of what's next.
Yeah.
It's insane because it happens literally seconds after the trial's over.
Yeah.
Yep.
Just outside.
Yes. Like on the courtroom steps.
Yeah.
Like nobody can ignore it.
She
it's
was
there.
such big news that they had printed 2 editions of the paper of the afternoon paper.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
that's right.
they were gonna give out whichever one was correct, right? Like the guilty or the innocent one.
Yep.
And that's how big this news was. And then the moment that the verdict is read, a new murder happens. People were literally trampling over the newspaper because
they
nobody
couldn't care
cares.
less anymore.
Yep.
Hey, what happened? Billy, what the hell happened?
He's a Chicago kid. You can't beat fresh blood on the walls.
Not my publicity, Billy.
This is the final song that Roxy sings on her imaginary stage. The spotlight blinks out on her concerned face, and in the next scene, we see her singing the same song in the real world as an audition. After another rejection, Velma reappears to offer Roxy a chance to do a show together.
Yeah. This song is so interesting because it starts with her being unsure and sad and afraid. And so when she's singing it alone, she sings it slowly and just kind of almost shakily, you know, and then the spotlight goes up and it out on her face.
Yeah.
When the song is incorporated back into the show later on, it's upbeat.
Yep.
You know, it's sung in a happy context.
Yep. The film's finale, Roxy and Velma's grand performance, takes place at the famed Chicago Theater. The venue opened in 1921, and the film crew needed to bring the location back to that era. They spent a day filming the building's exterior. Toy Box, a special effects house in Toronto, replaced the theater's modern surroundings with older architecture. Another film crew shot some old cars and extras in period clothing in front of a cobblestone street to lay in front of the building footage. It took 6 months.
For one shot.
Man, dang.
Darn it.
Yeah.
If only time travel existed.
That one looked better than the beginning shot, though, when
It
they
really
walk
did.
across the street. This one, you couldn't really tell as much.
No, you couldn't.
As the song concludes, Roxy sums up the show in one final speaking line. Believe us, we could not have done it without you.
Yeah. So her and Velma are performing on the stage.
Yep.
They're dancing with fake guns. They pretend to like shoot the lights behind them.
Yeah.
The audience is eating this up.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it's a huge audience now.
Yep.
It's not the Onyx Theater anymore.
Nope.
This is not like an intimate location.
Yep.
Right.
And, you know, and this is where it transforms into the Hot Honey Rag because it's nowadays. And then once that part of the song is done, you know, it speeds up. They do the dancing.
Yep.
The band leader introduces their performance.
Yep. Mama Morton's there. Billy Flynn's there.
Everyone's
Everybody's there.
Yeah, they're all there to watch this happen.
Yep.
And this is the conclusion of the story. You know, they find their fame. They get what they want.
Yep.
They are happy.
Before the actual performance, I guess the second half of the performance,
Yeah.
Velma says one of my favorite lines in the movie. I can't remember the exact line, but it was something along the lines of, I hate you. It's like,
Oh,
well,
yeah.
this is one of the few things where that's okay.
Yeah.
You know,
Like,
basically saying,
oh, yeah. This is,
we
yeah.
can do this while still hating each other.
Yeah, it's one of the few businesses where
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
that doesn't matter.
Yeah, like, because we
Something-
could just
yeah.
make a lot of money.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's okay.
Yes.
Yeah, but I'm like, ha. And that's why it's like, are you sure you're not friends? Because, like, I guess not. I guess
I'm sure
hate each other.
they end up being friends eventually.
Yeah.
After enough performing together. Yeah.
Right, yeah, probably. Either that or one kills the other one eventually.
I know. I was
And then
thinking,
we start it all over again.
Unless one gets
Yes.
married and the other one.
Yeah.
So that's the end of the songs.
Yay!
We did it. We made it to the end.
Got it.
So now we're going to talk about the reception of this movie and its awards.
All right.
Yay!
Movie musicals are not known to rake in the awards, but according to IMDb, Chicago was nominated for an impressive 129 awards. It won an equally impressive 59 of them. At the 2003 Academy Awards, it won Best Picture, along with Best Actress in a Supporting Role, Catherine Zeta-Jones, Best Art Direction / Set Direction, Best Costume Design, Best Film Editing, and Best Sound. It was the first movie musical to win Best Picture at the Oscars since 1968.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well done.
More awards of great note are Queen Latifah, who won Best Actress at the BET Awards, a BAFTA for Best Sound, BAFTA for Best Performance by an Actress in a Supporting Role for Catherine Zeta-Jones, Critics' Choice Awards for Best Picture, Best Acting Ensemble, and Best Supporting Actress for Catherine, a BMI Film Music Award for Danny Elfman, and many more.
Oh my gosh, what a list.
I know.
Yeah, which that's where I learned that it was Danny Elfman who did the score, and I was like, "What?
Yes.
What?"
This is a winning movie.
Yes.
Really,
Absolutely.
really won a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Rightfully so.
Yeah. With only a $45 million budget, Chicago grossed $306.8 million worldwide. This was on the heels of Moulin Rouge, another popular film musical that premiered in 2001. These two films helped launch a new era of movie musicals. The genre no longer seemed dead, or nearly as much of a risk.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I mean, there really was kind of a boom. Chicago, though, is, considered by many people to be the best movie adaptation of a musical ever.
Mm-hmm.
Because it stayed so true to the musical, but it also was its own thing. And it really was an adaptation that kind of added to the work, which is, it's kind of difficult to do.
That's the dream.
All right, next is everybody's favorite part, the fun fact.
Yay!
Is it everyone's favorite? I'm just...
Yeah,
I don't know.
Probably.
Chicago was released in December of 2002, almost 22 years ago.
Can you believe it?
How
Wow.
fun
This
is that?
movie's almost
man.
22 years old. It turns 22 this year.
When Roxy first meets her cellmates and Mama Morton, she has an interaction with a woman smoking a cigarette. This is a cameo appearance by Cheetah Rivera, a Broadway legend who originated the role of Velma Kelly in the 1975 production.
Yeah.
She's fine. Long as you keep her happy.
They really make it look like she's gonna be Velma.
Yeah.
And then you see the person, because you just see the smoking.
Yeah.
And then you see her, and it's like, oh, it's somebody else.
It's just
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then, so I was like, she's very clearly somebody.
That had to be a cameo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because she talks and she has such a great presence and she's so commanding that you feel like she's gonna be a bigger character, but she's only in that scene.
During its box office run, Chicago rose to number 3 under How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days and Shanghai Nights.
Yeah.
That's pretty good
Yeah.
for a movie musical. Are we
Exactly.
talking
That's
about?
right.
Yeah.
At this time,
It rose to number 3?
is big.
Oh.
yeah.
How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days was so big.
It was very,
It's a huge movie.
very
Yeah.
big.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a pretty big deal.
Yep.
Yeah. There's not a lot of fun facts. I couldn't find many, honestly.
Yeah, I
really
know.
couldn't.
Most of it was just information that would be
Honestly,
good for the episode.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
honestly, the movie is so interesting that it's all worth talking about.
yeah.
You know, not that the fun facts aren't worth talking about, but they're just, where they don't fit in anywhere else.
Yeah.
Right.
But the whole movie's just chock full of cool stuff. So
I know.
Yeah.
It really is. It's beautiful. It's conceptual. It's interesting. It's like, it's really creative. There's something
Yeah.
really creative about this movie and the way, you know, and they made it feel so grand, even though so much of it takes place on just one little stage, you know, but they really did such a good job with, I mean, this is such a beautiful adaptation of something because, you know, like we said before, you know, they really took the source material and they kept what was, you know, vital to the story, and they changed what they needed to change. And so it's a true adaptation where it's like, this isn't exactly it, but it's a new version of it. And it's really good and really fun to see in that way.
Yeah, it's a perfect reframing of it. You know, it's like you said, doesn't change the important things. The meaning is all still there. Everyone's still the worst ever. So but it became a period piece at the same time, and that totally works out for it.
Yeah. I mean, the idea of a musical going from stage to a movie is a really popular idea. At least it used to be a pretty popular idea. And it was because, you know, movies have a way of making you feel like you're really in something, you know, and when you're watching something on a stage, you know, if it's done really well, you feel the same way. But movies are just a little bit more accessible. And, you know, and people who live kind of far from Broadway, they're not gonna go see these things on stage,
right?
You know, and you know the acting is so different from like a play to a movie.
100%.
You know, like on a stage, it's acting times 100.
Right.
Yes.
You know, you're trying to like reach a whole bunch of people.
Yeah. Makeup times 100. Costumes times 100.
Well, it's like from a distance a lot of the
exactly
times, you know?
Yeah.
So they have to over exaggerate so you can tell what they're implying, you know. Whereas a movie, you can frame it however you want. At the same time, on stage, I think it's kind of like, you know, you're playing to the crowd a little more. Whereas a movie, you can't do that really. So it's from the get-go, you have to frame it differently. And it's just, you know, it's better to accept that from the beginning rather than try to force it to be one or the other.
Yeah.
I'm glad they waited for the right person to be able to bring it to life like this.
They didn't just try to do it. Even though they didn't really know how.
Because they wanted to. They were like, we don't know how. So I'm glad they didn't force it.
It was a good idea to wait. For somebody who was like, I want to do it. Here's how I would do it. And you're like, okay.
You know what?
That sounds pretty good. That might work. All right.
Chicago addresses celebrity worship and the corruption that exists in some of our most treasured and foundational institutions. It reminds the audience of the part that we all play in choosing who will be blessed by fame and the implications of that responsibility. And somehow it manages to relay this message in the form of an incredibly entertaining show.
It's super fun.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't, people wouldn't like it. It's tough pill to swallow, honestly.
You just feel bad the whole time.
Just be crying for Amos the whole time. From start to finish, this film dazzles audiences with its creative sets, breathtaking costumes, and its loyalty to the source material. For many, it's the most successful film adaptation of a stage musical ever made. Bob Fosse's and Rob Marshall's directorial styles blended beautifully together to make something that was completely unexpected. An Oscar-winning movie musical in a time when the genre was all but abandoned by major studios. So, if you haven't watched this sequin-studded film, give it a chance. It's sure to razzle-dazzle you.
Whoa.
Yay.
And that's a case closed. All right, well, we're gonna thank our patrons: JD, John, Jacob, Shelly, Anthony, and Bob.
Perfect.
Yeah, got them all.
All right.
First
good
try,
job.
man.
Good job. All right.
That was an actual first try.
Yeah, visit blackcasediaries.com for more, for information about this episode, and also because, you know, all our other stuff is there too.
Yeah.
Other episodes, other things.
Yeah. All the art, for each episode.
Yeah.
You can take a
Adam does
gander
original
at.
art for every episode.
Yeah. So you can always
So
look
if
at
you're
all
not
of
following
those.
us on Instagram, you don't see that. So
Yeah.
go to our website.
And if you made it this far without listening to part 1, what are you doing? Make sure you listen to
It's
part 1.
going to play part 1 directly after, probably, right?
That's true if you start from newest.
Yeah. As long as you have it set to play only our
Hopefully we
our
didn't spoil
podcast.
too much for you.
Yeah, hopefully you've seen the movie. If not, please give it a watch.
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah,
fantastic.
you don't need to know. You don't need to be surprised by the movie.
Yeah.
So, all right. See you later.
All right, bye.
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 I guess you could say we broke up because of artistic differences. He saw himself as alive, and I saw him dead.